what stream? Okay, you should be able to see the stream on the YouTube recording. Like with a bit of lag, but anyway, so let's get into this. I guess I could do the thing, Neil, this, and look at the Twitter thread, which I haven't. I don't usually do, but maybe it's actually a good idea because people do summarize things on there. But yeah, not. I guess I'm not going to bother right now, and we can just look at this. So there is the blog post, which is a summary, and then the paper. Let's look at the blog post first, something what it says. Okay. Yeah, so this is just like what the paper is about, I guess. Yeah, also, this says things, yeah, here it says, like, understand it whether AI systems can truly introspect. But, like, this seems like one of those things to me where it's, like, when you say introspection, you are you're probably think people are probably thinking of whatever the humans do that we call introspection, and we don't have like a clear idea of what that is. And it seems like if there is something like introspection in large language models, it might be something that works very differently, and intuition from one thing might not be that useful. I don't know. I'm not sure how much thinking of this of in terms of is it truly introspection if you don't even have a clear idea what that is that useful. But I'm interested in what exactly is the paper looking for in terms of what the behaviors the models do are. Uh, so yeah, feel free to like talk at any moment, so it's not just me reading the paper basically out loud. Uh, anyway, someone left. Anyway, our new research provides evidence for some degree of introspective awareness in our current cloud models, as well as the layers control over their internal space. Yeah, let's. I think Neil has some things to say about this that I think also make sense, but we leave to that. We stress that these introspective capabilities still highly unreliable and limited in scope. We do not have evidence that current models can introspect in the same way to some extent that humans do. Eh, that seems like not sure is that helpful to think about that. We don't even. I'm not sure we have a clear idea of what kind of like how human introspection work and what kind of thing is capable of, how much like our ideas of introspection are not actually accurate. But yeah, never mind. Nevertheless, let's find this some common intuition what are models capable of. Yeah, that does make sense. I feel like there is probably some things related to this that models can do that a lot of people will be surprised by. Uh, but yeah, let's see. What does it mean for an AI to introspect? Uh, The first one should take a moment to consider what it means to an AI model to introspect. What could be they be introspecting on? Language models, input process tests, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just talking about how models have internal mechanisms. Uh, yeah, whatever. There's a bunch
So
of links. Hmm?
yeah, I mean here, yeah, I do take your point of like, like the way, I mean, like introspection in humans versus introspection here, because like for instance, if he says, for instance, there's the statement here, right? If a model can correctly identify its own private internal states, then we can conclude it is capable of introspection. And I think a lot of like this kind of definition of introspection, I think it comes from like, you know, like a psychology view of what we mean by introspection. Like, people talk
Mm,
about internal states, but in that case, we don't actually know how the brain works, and maybe that's a good definition. I mean, one way to look at it could be, if a model cannot identify its private internal states, is it even a good model? Like, I mean, if we have like a multi-layer neural network, what else would it identify other than internal states, right? Like
mm,
a layer L plus one, like can only identify something from layer L.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's
I,
yeah.
I, I will
I'm not.
have. I think we need to actually look at to actually look at the experiments that I do, because it seems. And also I got like this part from having seen the Neil video earlier, but I feel like they have some more, like, from the experiments they actually are doing, you can get some more concrete idea of what this introspection thing is. But yeah, I don't have no idea if I will actually expect the thing humans do is different. And I seem some experiments might be testing things that humans can't actually do. Uh, but like it's not like humans can see, or it's not obvious humans can do. Uh, but yeah, I guess I guess we can. I think the paper might be interesting if we think of if you forget the word introspection and just think of, can models detect this kind of concept injection or react in some meta way to it or whatever. Uh, but I guess we need to actually keep reading and get to the part where what they are actually testing. If a model is capable of introspection. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we should see the full paper for a full discussion on the nuances later. But yeah, not sure if we're going to have time to read all of it anyway. But let's at least uh, look at this part. Okay, so testing project requires injection. So yeah, so basically this a lot of the paper is they have a model, they do a steering, yeah, they do steering, but they don't do so much steering that the model only talks about the concept. Uh, and try to figure out, like, ask the model to see if the model can tell when you are steering it what you're steering it with, or and if it can tell when it's being steered, and try to separate that for things like from things like, if you tell the model, if you make the model more likely to talk about the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, you ask it, have we like, do you think you're being steered to, or whatever, you have injected some thought about something? If it says the Golden Gate Bridge, you don't know if that's because it actually, in some sense, doing the meta thing of being able to talk about what is being steered into, or just steering to to think more about the Golden Gate Bridge makes it more likely to say Golden Gate Bridge to come into questions. Uh, and I get the impression, and I haven't actually read it. This is more from having been hearing Niels Neil talk about this the other yesterday I was watching his video. That again, a lot of the experiments are trying to disentangle like this kind of more interesting introspection from all of the boring uh, explanations in some sense. No, yeah, no idea how well they've done that, but we'll see. Yeah, so like here they have the all cap spector, and they have the all cap spector, and they delete all this, and that the experiment they are doing, and then ask it if it's the designated thought. And I think so. So the thing. Oh yeah, this is. Yeah, this is the code that on previous examples on with things like the Golden Gate clock, the model didn't realize, it didn't act like it realized that that it has been injected with the Golden Gate bridge cloth until after it started talking about it. And notice, okay, it's weird that I just said Golden Gate Bridge. I will talk about the Golden Gate Bridge for no reason. And here, the model. Uh, yeah, the model does think. Yeah, that does immediately, like on the first talking, already, like the first few talks, already start saying, I notice, whatever. And it does that separate for actually, you know, saying the word loud or whatever. Uh, like you could imagine something where this was only the most boring explanation, which just the steering makes it say the word. It will on the normal one also say all say like all caps, like say some random thing, and here said this thing. Um, but yeah. Uh,
But I mean, what if it was like if the input was all caps, right? Like if it was actually if instead of steering, we actually gave all caps input, uh, and asked the model whether it is all caps or something of that type, it would, I mean, like I mean the intervention that we have made is in the in the input, right? It's not in what the model is generating. So like when it starts generating, the fact that it immediately identifies should not be surprising, right? Because like if it was all caps input and we had asked if it was that is this all caps input, it would just immediately start saying that this is all caps input. And now what we have done is we've given it
hmm.
possibly not caps input and we have steered it in a caps direction. So it should it immediately identify that, or at least get confused that this is all caps. Or like there is some caps
Well,
thing going on.
it's actually the injection. Is the injection in the input, or is the injection like on the middle, like when it's generating? Yeah, I think it's the injection is while it's generating this, right? Well, it's I guess it's on some middle layer. Yeah, I guess it's my uh I guess yeah. I guess I don't know your wing. So this is like the making these text like maybe the injection is something like it says you should speak in gold tax, and now the model just believes this previous text say something that it should talk about all caps, and it's just like doing that. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it's a general thing that I will see about the experiments to do. I feel like if you need to do a lot of experiments here to disentangle of the all of the possible ways this can be boring or like or have some other explanation. I'm not even clear what it. Again, there's the problem of what does even like what does introspection even mean, because it's not obvious to me that if there is something analogous to humans where you take a human, you put some electrodes on them, and you change some activations of some neurons so they, you know, think more about a concept or something, that they will realize until after immediately instead of after a bit of thinking, and notice they keep thinking about breath or whatever for no reason. Uh, like, mm, well, I guess we can see what more experiments they did. And see what kind of hypothesis about what's going on they reject or whatever. Uh, I guess something interesting thinking about this is uh, I guess it's hard to get the model to directly talk about it, but uh, if you things like in some setup where the model was directly talking uh, at the start, like if you don't have any prompt but you do some injection and the model starts talking about it, that will be interesting. I'm not sure how that will even work, because the default the model is not going to be talking about this weird meta thing of, or even have the idea of that it's being injected. I mean, if it did, it would be pretty interesting, but I don't know. After a while of contest, I feel like uh, at this rate, in the future, when models start talking about something like the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever, they have read all of these papers and they are going to guess it's something like that. Uh, yeah. Anyway, responses to the content injection. I thought about a dog. It's a dog. Can be cute, but probably an infection. I guess it is interesting that, yeah, I guess that the models do something that is interesting is that models do notice, like, yeah, even on the thing you were saying, like the models notice that there is something weird about there being something about the the counting or whatever on this text that is about this experiment. Or maybe like the model, like there is something about how the staging is not how the patterns normally behave that triggers it, and that will be a known that something vaguely like introspection-y, but yeah, I don't know. Well, I feel like we need to look a lot of experiments on different to discard a lot of boring hypotheses before I will be pretty
Yeah.
sure something like that's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, at least this part that it detects it over and above the input. I mean, it can differentiate that. I mean, if it says that you have injected it, then it kind of, you would need to be sure that it's not, or at least like you would need some signal that it's not a natural vector
Yeah,
given the input. So some sort of, diff in the thought space should be possible.
yeah. Like at least it's noticing that countdown. The countdown is the weird thing about the inputs. Even if thinking about the input. Instead of saying like I don't know, like here I noticed that this text, like for example, this text has a percent. Maybe it will think, oh, I'm thinking about percents, when it's actually normal pattern of the activations that causes the normal input. Uh, But I guess that at the same time, we not need to know like how cherry picked this is. I think Neil mentioned that. Yeah, they do talk about this on the paper and how like often this happens. I will have to look about that. Versus because maybe the model also actually talks about all kind of things and gets it wrong. I only sometimes gets the right one. Uh, yeah, here they even say it here. Never mind. It's important this method often doesn't work. Only awareness 20% of time. I mean, 30% of the time is still not that bad if there are a lot of different concepts going on the text. I guess makes me think what happens if you have a very long text with a lot of things, a lot of different contexts that is just not about the experiment, and you add some injected vector on it and ask the model this and see if we can separate it with about all of the other concepts that are actually going on the thing. Yeah, gets confused by then start to hallucinate. Okay, yeah, it's kind of funny. That's, okay. This is also like maybe the reason the model notices because they found some point where that it's just that the strength of the steering is hard enough that like it's not that it noticed that counting is weird, it's that counting is the strongest thing is thinking about because like that concept has been artificially increased a lot. I mean this is like 4 times the strength of the normal thing, and they tried a bunch of strengths until they found like how cherry pick the actual strength they did is, and then maybe it's just an effect from that. Yeah. Anyway, if people want me to skip parts or like go to some part of it that they find more interesting, I can do that. Uh, Production models, hechas de models. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting if whatever the thing they are looking at is whether it's something more boring or something like that's vaguely like introspection, whatever that means. That happens more on bigger models. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe there is Predator on Air paraphors, but I'm not sure what age only models is. But they probably explain it later. Yeah, I don't know. Production models. Net.
No, they say it's helpful only, I guess.
Um, so they, I guess this, let's see what explain, but is that just they did the post training, but only trying to make it helpful instead of whatever they do to make it honest and harmless? We'll get to that, I guess. Okay, it's a measure for the data unusual outputs. In another experiment, we tested whether uh, the models make use of introspective capabilities for practical purposes without specifically asked to introspect. Yeah, that's also interesting. We found. I think this paper is much better if they did a lot of different experiments and look at a lot of different things. Because I will be that we might get a lot more insight into whatever this is that if they are running an experiment, because if they in a single experiment there's a lot of other explanations. uh we made the model and put the word breath in context that make no sense, asking it what it thinks about when reading a sentence about painting hanging crooked on the wall. There's a model in the next turn where they meant to say breath. Typically I apologize and say it was an accident. I think Neil has a good point on the video here. That is, they should test if you take a different model or some text that actually came from humans or not the model. Does the does the model have the same behavior or not? Uh,
Could you explain that again?
like
Sorry.
so here they're talking about okay. So they want to uh, yeah, so they injected the word breath on it, right? Uh, and yeah, so they want to they made the model put breath. Uh, Asking what it thinks about reading the sentence about the painting hanging on the wall. Yeah, well, so they just changed the output, right? And they make the model some realize that that was wrong. But they want to know, does the model realize that saying breath is wrong because the is doing some kind of introspection and realizing it didn't meant to say breath? Or is the model just saying breath because yeah, is the model just reading the text and noticing somehow that breath is out of place, so it must be a mistake. And something that you could do there is a give the model text from another model and see if it can if it's actually also notices that it's breath that breath is out of place or whatever. Because then it doesn't have access to the correct thoughts that generated that text. Or something like that. I don't remember what Neil said exactly. Because they do they think they making the model have been thinking out breath, but maybe when you add the word breath, so when you add the injection for the concept of breath on the thing, it just thinks that there was some reason on the input that was something on the input that was about breath there.
Okay.
I know, so like they have this interpretation of it was thinking about breath, but what does that even mean? I guess. Uh, like it feels like thinking out these seems like to actually figure out what's going on, you will have to understand a lot more about what does it mean for the model to think about some concept or whatever, and what the thought process of the model is, and what's the difference between the model that your injection changing the model thinking that the text says something else versus your injection affecting something more downstream on the decision process where the model is doing some other thinking and that leads it to uh, think about the breath for whatever more abstract reason. Yeah, like here is this behavior is tricky because it suggests the model is checking its internal intentions, but it's not obvious to me this really checks whether like that you are steering, like when you are steering bread or whether you're steering the intentions or whatever that means. uh,
Right. Yeah, I think that requires like a much more mechanistic understanding, right? Of, as you said, like what does thinking about a concept mean, or because like right now all they're doing is like injecting something in a way which is not completely clear what impact that has, right? I mean, like for instance,
yeah,
I mean, it is changing in a way, like, you're changing the probability distribution represented by the model, right? By just like injecting something systematically.
yeah,
And maybe it just, some things become more probable because of that by accident.
yeah. Like on the other
As
hand, I do think like if you do a lot of experiments like this and then
mm,
did a lot and maybe and you might get some information. It might not be enough to like fully understand it, but you might discard a lot of hypotheses and a lot of information as what kind of mechanism things could be going inside, possibly. Uh, but you need to test a lot of different things and be very careful. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry if I interrupted you. I should let people talk more.
no, no, all good from my
Mhm.
side. I'm not sure if someone else was saying.
Instead referring back to its prior neural activity, is internal presentation what is planned to do. Like what it made giving those early thoughts. When you plant artificial appearance, the quantitators that it contemplate. Yeah, I is like in some sense makes sense, but I just not sure that this means that the the injection actually makes it think that it planned to save Breath. Or like it does make it think that, but I don't know. I think there are multiple ways that it could have made the model think it planned to save Breath. Uh, yeah. And next thing is internal control in certain states. And I'm also very curious what's that about. Okay. Models can control when so models to think about like in some sense everything is everything the model does is like what does it mean by control? Because I mean everything that models do is controlling their own internal activations, and that seems like it's vague enough. Yeah, I guess the interesting thing they do here is that they say think about aquariums while you write the true sentence, and here they say don't think about aquariums, and the model yeah, saying don't think makes the thing activate less than saying think. And I would have thought that actually this is good evidence that the models can do something like this. Like, could in some sense change the amount they activated based on the instruction. But Neil did have some alternative hypotheses. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to explain very accurately about what could be going on here. Uh, that are like more uh, say don't just inhibits whatever the activation of the next thing is. At the same time, maybe that's actually what the model controlling its activations looks like. At the same time, there's this whole thing of having this introspection thing and be having more boring explanations, and how much actual introspection, even humans or whatever, is just the boring explanations. And if you actually did understand, like it will sound like it's just some boring mechanism that is doing something simple. Uh, okay, but okay, this is also interesting that if they do things, if you think about X, you will be rewarded. So that's like more indirect. And it will be interesting in seeing like tests of about a lot of different, people trying a lot of different variations and see how indirect you can be for the model to to not think about something. Okay, so taken together, experiments suggest that models possess some genuine capacity to monitor and control their own internal states. It doesn't mean they are able to do so all the time or reliably. Most of the models fail to demonstrate introspection. They are too aware of the internal states and unable to report on them coherently. The pattern of results indicates that when conditions are right, models can recognize the context of their representations. Making the future more powerful models.
Yeah, I mean, definitely lot more experiments can be done. Like for instance, if like that control part, right? Like I mean, how granular can you control? Can you tell a model to think about dolphins and then think about something else while writing about something completely different? And then if you look at the activations at different parts of the passage, will you see like different concepts? I mean, yeah, I mean, lots of different, I think, yeah, lots of interesting experiments can be done as to like how accurate the control is, at least.
Yeah, and then this whole thing seems a lot of there is a lot of experiments to do here, and this kind of thing is probably a good like a cool subject to study. I'm not sure like talking about it in terms of introspection helps when description is so vague, but something like people study like there are some other cases where I think when people should just use the normal anthropocentric or whatever word, like thinking or whatever, for language models because the thing they are doing is close enough in the way that people mean that is kind of not useful to be like it's not really thinking or whatever, but or it doesn't really know things or whatever. But this seems like a case where using the thing that's going on here, if anything, is weird and different enough for whatever humans do that. It's not sure how much talking about introspection help, and maybe we should find out some different jargon or something for it. But apart from that, it seems like a cool subject of research.
Yeah, no, like there's another paper that there's another, it was part of this another reading group where like, they were reading this paper on like metacognition, and the author was there presenting, and so I had asked him this question, and like basically his point was that this is how introspection is defined in psychology literature, and maybe it is not a comparable thing, like the same thing, but at least from that definition, this is how you think about it. Like he was talking about metacognition, not introspection.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a bit confusing because it's true that maybe it doesn't mean the same thing in both systems, but yeah, somebody will have to like define things and like come up with better names, which I guess is too
Yeah.
much work.
I mean, otherwise, fine for you people just introspection. I do at the same time do think that, like, a lot of the time when people are like, be very insistent on the opposite of not using whatever word for whatever language model they're using, they are getting more confused, nor less, because they end up thinking, that whatever their language models are doing is very different from humans, and often, they train models are trained on human text, and they often behave in a lot of ways that are similar to humans. Uh, and like having that kind of intuition actually is like is also misleading, but less misleading than being aggressively anti that. I don't know, it's kind of complicated, but yeah, in general, looking apart from all of those caveats, I think yeah, research into how much models can do some kind of meta thinking or whatever about their own activations in some sense, and what kind of things models can do on this, and what kind of things they can't do. And which things that seems like a lot of. Oh, I don't know. Is that on the? Yeah, I saw that. I was not. Yeah, I don't know where. Is that on the server or on some other place? I not. Okay, I think that the thing you posted, that Barney posted on the chat, I think they did enough experiments on the thing to say it's not just that. Because they, for example, like, I think the main one of the main things they were doing on this paper is trying to differentiate between that explanation and something more interesting going on. And I think I'm convinced there is something more interesting going on, even if there is a lot of more boring explanations that will explain it. But they are different than it just talks about the injected thought because it's being injected. Because, for example, here they mention how it's not just the model mention. It's not that the model talks about the interception. It's when you don't inject anything, the model says, "I don't detect any injected thought," right? Like as they say here, the interesting thing is that the model differentiates between there is something injected and there is nothing injected. As opposed to the model always, when you say this, it hallucinates that there is some injection, it says some random thing. And it just happens that when it's being injected to say all caps, it says all caps because that's the thing that is more likely to say.
Yeah, the other thing is like, once you steer something like, I mean, it's like, like the output of there is no way to different. I mean, you cannot like unsteer it, right? Like, I mean, there's no way to like find out what the, how much was steered and how much was like the input representation. And so if the model can to some reliability talk about what just the thing that was injected, it also suggests, I mean, otherwise it could have talked about something which is a combination of the input plus what was injected. If it
Yeah.
can identify what was injected, it means there is, some interesting capability there.
Yeah, in that case, I do worry that it might be just because you are steering the steering is vector is much bigger than all of the other concepts in the model, so it will talk about that in other context. Uh, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Right. But then, yeah, I think one issue is like, it's not clear to me, like, because they talk about like that the first experiment is like 20%, but I don't know because there's another experiment where they try to compare, like, try to see whether the second experiment was like differentiating the input from the injected. Uh, right. So one is like just detecting what was injected, and second is differentiating the input from the injected. Um, but I mean, I don't know if like, there's a way to like compose both of these experiments to understand the phenomena, like
Hmm.
in a cumulative way. Um,
I guess part of our take here is the people need to do a lot more experiments on this.
right, right.
Uh,
I'm, I'm
but
also
yeah,
trying
this.
to think.
Hmm?
I'm trying to think what would be the comparison to human. I mean, we don't steal humans, but uh, let's say theoretically we would be able to change their memory and then ask them same questions. Do we expect the same results? Like, and I think here they said that if you alter, if you steer too much, then they they misbehave or they hallucinate, and so you have to steer in exactly the right way so they would know that something is wrong, but not lose their minds.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you do something like this to humans, I don't know what happens. Like, for starters, what happens if you take a human brain, look at whatever the neurons activating or whatever are doing when it's thinking out something and when they is not thinking out it, take the difference and like have some electrodes or whatever and change the activations of the brain? Does these have similar effects as steering models in human brains? I'm not sure. If it does, it's also not obvious to me that humans will notice immediately as opposed to uh, like, you have some thing that makes some weird thing on your brain that makes you think about the Golden Gate Bridge, and you spend for a moment and notice that you keep thinking about the Golden Gate Bridge, and but like, how much is thinking in humans the equivalent to like the model internal activations versus the something like chain of thought. Like in some sense, the models are thinking out loud at the same time, so it's kind of hard to tell what is analogous to what. And it's not like humans can. Definitely, it's not the case that humans have much idea of like what the activation sort of neurons are. It's at least in some level, higher level of abstraction, if there is some introspection. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. I think that this method of even asking people, what did you think a minute ago? I'm not sure how reliable it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like to me also that a lot of humans, I think there is a lot of evidence that a lot of humans' explanations of why we did things are also basically made up after the fact based on what we did and having some model of ourselves based on external data of what we remember doing and not like some internal access to or actual reasons or whatever. Anyway, is there anything specific on the paper? But here's the full paper. Is there anything specific we want to look at that is not on the summary thing? I don't know how long. I mean, it's going to be an hour. I don't know how long people want to be here. But I can see if I see it. I guess the first thing I personally like, feel free to tell me to go to some section, but I think that personally the first thing I'm interested in is what the helpful only models are. Maybe it's
So I think they post-train it to not do refusals, basically.
um okay, so is the normal model that's being prostrating on the normal prostrating, and after that they do extra thing
Oh,
for not refusals?
no. Actually, I'm not sure.
Do you know which section that is?
1 second. I did see it somewhere.
Um, I think it's maybe here. Which use different post-training pipeline. Okay, so intended to be sort. Okay, so it's the full. I think they just refuse the
No,
yeah.
they took the pre-trained model, the base model, and then post-trained to avoid refusals.
Okay, yeah. We less emphasis on harmless or honesty. I wonder why they have that. Like I see, I guess Anthropic probably already. I know they did it for this experiment. So Anthropic probably has these models for some other internal testing purposes, which is interesting. Uh, so much models. Cloud, like Opus 3 continues to be like really weird compared to other models in all kinds of charts, and I don't think nobody has much idea why.
So I mean, this is in a way also like a security risk, right? If models can look at the internals and tell you about their internal thoughts in some sense. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to like craft some sort of an attack because like, I mean, companies go through so much to like even hide logists and those kind of things. Because like there are known attacks, exploits that you can do. So maybe this is like a new attack vector in some sense.
Wait, yeah, I'll put it here so it shows up on the thing. So the cat says that helpful only models are used on often internal evaluations and for producing synthetic data for cross-training cloud models. Okay. Alternative prompts. What about models and models? I think like there is a bunch of things that I remember Neil mentioning from the video after when he was reading the full paper. Yeah, I'm not sure we have time now to get into all of the experiments. So like that's a very interesting thing to do right now. I guess I can start from the quickly go through the whole thing and see what experiments there are and maybe we can focus on something that people find interesting. Okay, so first is just the introduction, which is just typical stuff about introspection or whatever. Oh. Oh, actually, they have a definition of introspection. Right. So, accuracy, the model description test must be accurate. Oh, I did link it. I can link it on again, but it's on. It's actually like on the a few messages earlier. Like when I announced that we were doing this paper on Monday, I put it again on the.
Didn't you already go over it on like Friday or last Thursday or something? Or that never happened?
Sorry, you mean this paper? No, the Thursday was a different paper.
Ah.
And we had the authors and all that. I just picked this one for today because it was interesting and I think I mean, maybe I should have tried to get the author for this paper, but I just thought it was less likely. Like anthropic people are usually more busy and less likely to actually come here. So I picked this one. There was some other because it was interesting and wanted to read it. And for next week, maybe I'll try something else that I could get the author for. But at the same time, maybe I should have also tried to get the author for this one. I just didn't have a lot of ideas that to pick quickly for Monday. Goodbye. Yeah, Aman said he's dropping out. Yeah, I don't know how much we should like it's been an hour. I don't know how much people want to keep talking about this paper. I'm fine with keep going. But if most people want to leave, we can just end it here. Now we just at least got through the blog post, even if we haven't gotten. I think people are writing, but okay. Well, you write. Yeah, goodbye. Yeah, I also saw that. Yeah. At least I want to. I don't know. Yeah, at least I want to finish reading the description of introspection because that seems like it's important for like we were arguing earlier about what does introspection really mean, and if to be fair, the paper authors apparently did say what they mean by introspection, so that's that's I think I should read it at least. The model's description must be accurate. Some apparent instances of introspection into the Island language models are inaccurate configurations. Whoever experiments the capable person operates self-force means capability is inconsistently applied. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And also seems like that's something that gets more accurate with time. Grounded must be casually dependent on the aspect that's being described. That is, the external set where different description will change accordingly. Internality. Causal influence of the internal state on the model's description must be.
Do you understand number 4? Number 4 makes no sense for me, or maybe just using words.
Okay, let me read the for. The model's description of its internal state must not merely reflect a direct translation of the state. It puts it into language. It must derive from internal cognitive representation of this. Yeah, this is like maybe the most important one. If okay, of the state itself, internal representation, a thought about love.
This one I feel like is the hardest to prove from their experiment.
Okay, yeah,
and I'm
but
not sure
I guess this is the interesting one. So this is, I guess, how what they mean, their way of distinguishing from the thing that someone said on Purni's like screenshot of whether the difference between steering like does the model just say love or whatever because you make it more likely to say love, so when you tell it say what you're thinking about, it's more likely to say love. But if you told it tell you what you aren't thinking about, you will also say love. Actually, I'm curious. Have they even tried that? That seems like it's easier than most of the things they tried, and I'm not sure if it's on the paper.
Because like they say over in this that like it's difficult to do directly, and we do not do so in this work. So like you put, I feel like it's like a goalpost, but they don't actually do number 4. So I think they from this paper they do 1, 2, and 3. 4 is entirely ignored.
Try to do 4, and there are some experiments that discard some things, some other explanations that aren't 4. But yeah, I don't think they conclusively prove that that 4 is true.
Yeah, but they said it in the paper.
But they don't say. Yeah, I don't think they. I think they may be more optimistic than I will be about 4 being true based on the results of the paper. But yeah, I guess they are doing some experiments that seem to me like they are of the direction of trying to figure out where 4 is true or not.
Like, since they're saying it has to be like a more general like version of like love instead of like for the specific case, this feels like the distinguishing like I'm not sure how to test this. Maybe like something similar to like how you do like narrow versus broad fine tuning, maybe.
I think it's less general, but more about meta level. So like the model is not just thinking out love. The model is thinking about the fact that it's thinking out love.
Descartes is like said something in the
Yeah,
chat.
they don't know so on this work. They make sense. And at the same time, it feels like that's the more interesting thing because a lot of the other explanations are boring. That makes sense. I think that's not a bad take. The thing that Deckard said that the paper is weak. I think at the same time it's kind of hard to do that, and they are. Uh, I appreciate that they tried. Like this sets up for future work where people do more experiments on these directions and try to separate that. And I guess this is not maybe a completely bad definition, but yeah, I do agree. But by itself, the paper doesn't actually demonstrate
It feels like
that
this
much.
was like an incomplete or maybe like a wish list and like a call to action instead
At the
of
same
like
time, yeah, I do think things like the fact that that the model, like this thing that said that when the model doesn't say that the model says that it doesn't detect any injected thought when you don't inject, and it does say it notice something when it does. Though it's some evidence in favor that it's not just steering, but it's not that much evidence necessarily. And they do advance more things also on the paper, ones that they don't put on the summary, that are maybe a bit of evidence in that direction. But yeah, I wouldn't update to there is definitely something that's not steering going on here. On this, or that's not something that is not sadly steering, but also not this metacognition they talk about. Uh, I guess I would also want to see. So I guess the control thing is also interesting. I would also want to see more experiments that are that don't involve steering. That there's just more things like saying something to the model and looking at the activations or whatever directly.
I I'm kind of curious if maybe like the behavior of introspection that they like identified may be like similar to like the model diffing, like interpretability agents. Like maybe like they're just corresponding the same thing of being able to see how the model's fine tuned. Or maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misunderstood that one.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't understand you.
I'm just curious if like instead of introspection, the model is. I remember like wasn't it like they like fine tuned the models and then they gave data of like the direction and then like gave like 5 questions or like a few questions and they were able to like tell how it's fine tuned with these interpretability agents.
I think Deckard mentions this says on the chat that the Wine never. Yeah, I think it wasn't Wine 7's paper.
Yeah, it was in the that one that paper. I'm curious if like the introspection that they found here was exact same behavior and maybe they just labeled it something else or if it's something different.
Vaguely related, at least. I think they maybe I'm misremembering, but I think they do
I'm
mention
curious about
that
the
paper
connection.
somewhere.
I'm curious about the connection.
But yeah, I feel like this is related, or at least you find the same problems of how do you know the model is saying that because it has some more meta understanding versus you just make the model more likely to talk about the thing out the whatever the thing you find to need to say it was. I don't remember the fine-tuning thing that much to know how much they figured that out. Yeah, it was. Let me put that paper. Wait. Yeah, never mind. I'll look at it later. I'll look at that later. It does seem related. I don't know if it's exactly the same here, but it seems like vaguely the same kind of thing.
Yeah, but like it's might be some sort of like some like overall like idea of an LLM maybe.
But I don't know how much it's related in terms of
Yeah.
the mechanism that the model uses to do it are similar or related, or this is something that for us looks like it's a similar concept, but actually the mechanisms might be completely different. I don't know. The general feels like there is a lot. We need to understand a lot more about how models actually work internally and all that to talk about these kind of things. And right now, the best thing we have is people trying this kind of experiment and trying to find like all the possible confounders and whatever. When it's kind of hard to do this kind of research well. It will be nice if a lot more people make a lot more papers about this kind of thing, and we can, from all of the different experiments, figure out what things are plausible. But it will be better if we actually have some more Mech Interp understanding of like what's going on inside the models, and there is some part of the model that is thinking about what it's thinking or whatever. And like if we found if there was just some sparse encoder later that turns out that it's some meta thinking thing, and you just find that and it gives different results that Jan as steering on the direct concept, that would be pretty cool or something like that.
I don't think it'll be that easy, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But if it's not, yeah, we're probably going to need to get much better at actually understanding models.
Well, I don't think you could even test this because like the Anthropic credits, we don't have access to the model internals. So
no, not for this, but you could do experiments on other models. I doubt it's only closed models that do whatever the interesting thing is.
This could be tried on something like the DeepSeek R1 distilled or something.
It is unfortunate that they do say that it happens more on the bigger models, so it might be kind of hard to look at this.
Yes, it's impossible for the poor to recreate or experiment on this experiment.
I mean, at least models get cheaper exponentially, so not that many times.
But the models become like they have access to better and better models, so we're still stuck with the second tier one.
But the wheel, even if we are on the second tier models, the kind of models that people can run on their computers will probably not even in that long get good enough that they do this kind of behavior or whatever even consistently. Like I think in the not very far future we'll have like the open models that are not that big are not that far away from the biggest models. All of the models keep getting better, and like there'll always be better frontier models. But if you are interested in some behavior that happens at some scale, you at least can just wait until
You just have to wait 2 years or something to
you have to
check
wait
this
2
paper.
years or something until the bad current models are the good models of 2 years ago. Actually, I wonder how much I would have to. I'm interested. We'll have to check how much, like I don't know, the current the latest small open source models are better than I don't know GPT-2 or something like that. Just in terms of for the same compute. GPUs have also gotten better, but mostly for the same compute, how much?
Are you talking about the original GPT-2, or you're talking about the GPT-2s
The original
where like
GPT-2.
people
The
build it so it's
the-
more efficient, like those
original
small
one.
GPT-2s?
I'm thinking about how much better, like the efficiency of running models has gotten. I get that impression for like Epoch AI posts that it's be getting unlike for things like how much people have like how much inference costs have decreased and things like that it's gone up, like the cost of running a model at the same level of capabilities goes down exponentially, but I don't know that much about it. Anyway, is there anything else on the paper that we want to look at? Oh yeah, here they say like on the failures that happen sometimes. So the thing is, the model only says this sometimes, which is less evidence that it always happen, a lot less actually, because it also does something like the model will sometimes deny detecting an injected thought, but there's clear influences by the injected content, which is also the kind of thing that will expect if it's just steering in some sense. Where they enable steering and disable later then query the model. Oh. Oh, where is that? Okay, I'll just do Control F for that. We found that Opus, okay. Also, wait, let me turn out the lights. Um, oh yeah, the thing where yeah. Oh, okay. That does seem interesting to me because like when we were talking about this thing, but on the the blog post, it was the opposite. I was reading the opposite where the model you just made the model say no wait, never mind, I'm misreading it. So you prefill with breath. Okay, I was confused for a moment, but now I'm interested in the thing I was imagining. Can you make the model say like? have the model say something else and make the model think it meant to say breath or whatever with injections. Like here you make the model actually say the text, right? But yeah, and here the model says it wasn't. If you don't do steering, the model thinks it was an accident, and otherwise it says that it meant to say breath. But can you, if you ask it this, you don't feel the breath, but at the breath thing, does the model think it meant to say breath, but it accidentally said that the painting hung crooked on the wall, whatever? Is the thing I'm thinking. Maybe they do. Or like here, I'm curious if they tried. Like, let's say you add treasures and you inject the breath thing. Does it say, okay, I said treasures, but I actually meant to say breath? Or whatever. Or vice versa.
Is it only for bold words they tried, or was it that was the example they used for the injecting the text?
Oh, I think no, they make the model say breath. I'm not sure I understand what you meant.
Which model diagram is this again?
I'm at the distinguishing intended from unintended is in outputs via introspection. This thing. I'm sharing my screen by the way.
So I guess the model has some way to know, like, if the activation's too high, just like crops it out or something, maybe.
Just like so the thing. So if you just add something that's here that they are taking for granted, but is not trivial and interesting is models. If you add some random word or if you change things on a text model output, they sometimes can tell that the text is weird and that they wouldn't say it. Even like subtle things that a human might notice. Like might not notice. Like the models have gotten very good at like predicting internet. Like we're trained on predicting internet text, and they have some like awareness of subtle things about the internet, what kind of person writes on text or something. And yeah, if you say change a lot on the text on the models, they sometimes notice that that's not something they will like. That's not typical helpful, harmless, honest cloud assistant behavior, and flag that. But here the thing is, you can make the model think it meant to say that if you just add the steering.
Wasn't it the ones with like the plus, like the strength was increased that it didn't say it was an accident? Well, the ones that it just added the by default gave it.
Yeah, if you just add the text, it says that it's an accident. If you add the text and increase the breadth vector inside the model. It thinks it wasn't an assignment meant to say it.
Yeah, they know it's suspicious.
They know it's suspicious, but if you make them think it very hard for some reason, which might be, I can also think of more boring explanations that don't have to do with this kind of metacognition, that don't involve metacognition. It would that makes the model be less suspicious. For this, I would also want to see things like what happens if the model, for example, can you make the model think here that it meant to say something else it didn't say? Or is it just you need both the breath, like the model saying breath, and the steering to do it? I mean, even in that case, it might just be that the steering is bad. Like you are missing some things, some parts of how the model would think if it was really thinking out breath. You are not really doing the same of as making the model think out breath. You are doing something else weird. And if the model is not actually seeing the word breath, it doesn't actually do the same. Like it does, it just breaks. Uh, I mean, they say a bit more about this. We can read it, I guess.
There's no open source tooling from this at all. Is there any open source?
It would be
tooling,
nice if it
tracer
was
from
open
this?
source, but I understand that they can't do that because they have all of their proprietary code and secrets and stuff there, and they can't just give us all the code. But yeah, it's annoying when it's Anthropic doing the papers and they can't
making
do
stuff
this.
out.
Yeah. Hopefully, people will just replicate this on open source model and put the thing on GitHub. I mean, people from the server, I think, could do it if someone wants to. I'm kind of busy with other stuff, but yeah, if someone wants to, you can try to find people on the server, ask for collaborators, and try to replicate this paper. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Eleutherian people are already trying that or something, or that someone will otherwise. Or maybe you just, but or even as a personal project thing, you could replicate one of the plots or something and on open models. I guess that is the problem of maybe only the biggest models. Whatever the interesting thing is.
Yeah, if it's only the biggest models that do this, like you can't really recreate it. Like I don't think you. Most people have like enough
in that
compute.
case, the Eleuther AI people might still do it because they don't have a lot of compute. But yeah, I don't know. Let's read a bit about how they implemented this. The confirmation explainer why yeah. Apology rate. Yeah, so they concept.
Which org you said had enough compute to do it?
Oh, the Luther AI Discord. They have a. Also, like other people can maybe get compute from, for example, the inside people are giving compute sometimes. to researchers, but like Lucera is more like the where people do things like training open source models and for research stuff, like the PCO models or whatever. And because I think they have compute from the government, the US government or something. And also from like cloud providers that give them compute in exchange for like testing and promoting their stuff. I'm not sure how much that how exactly that works. We will have to ask Gonzalo, who works there. Anyway, control trials. Oh, Decker, is anything specific you want to know about how it's implemented? That's maybe explained here, or I was getting started. But... But not sure what you mean, because okay, so like you could just put the three messages, right? And then here on the activations of the model, when you take all of this, you add the treasures on the parts of the attention that correspond to this text, right? To these tokens, I mean. Like the when you run the model, you are always in some sense rerunning the previous parts, right? Like it's not like the activations go to the next thing. You just, I mean, they probably do reuse it for efficiency in practice, but like the model always has like the activations from the previous stuff. Or like it's more complicated because only later tokens can only look at the previous layers from like at the activations from like so one layers only can look at the previous layer from the previous tokens. Yeah, I mean in some sense it's like the current, like the model is always using the whole state for outputting. I'm not sure if explaining very well, because I feel like this is something I used to be very confused about. Now understanding now how transformers work and like what's generated for what. Like I think if something like here you injecting, this works by later parts of the text. Tokens that are later on layer 5 can look at the activations that the model generates when seeing these text on layer 4, for example, but not next layers. And those are the same activations that normally will have created the output here, right?
Which paper was this about, like layer 5?
Oh no, I just trying to say some things about Transformers work, which I'm not sure if I. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
I know it's like
So-
some layer. I just don't know what layer. Like what layer 5?
Oh yeah, no. I just using that as sampling. I just was trying to explain like how I think. I think here they just when they say yet here on the text, they just mean like on the model when it's generating these texts, they go to the tokens like the part of the attention that corresponds to those tokens to this part of the text and inject it there because the token since the model is autoregressive, the tokens here can only pay attention to the previous text. That said, like it is true that if you inject this here, you might also be affecting how the model reads stuff on the previous. You're injecting on the previous. On the middle layers, like the model is going to have information about all the previous text on this part. There is no nice way of only changing the effect of this part of the text unless you do it on like the first layer or like in the embeddings directly. But you can. But if you inject here, you are not injecting on treasures on this because the model is autoregressive and the tokens here only pay attention to the previous ones. Yeah, I don't think if someone is not following what I'm saying, I'm probably not being at all very. I probably should not try to explain this right now. But yeah. Because I feel like there is a bunch of things there that I didn't really understand until I was like actually watching the video where Neil coded a transformer and explained it, the different parts of it, and following through the tutorial.
Oh, that video.
And I was very confused before that about basic things about transformers.
I feel like I rewatch it every once in a while because I forget stuff. You have to do like some repetition of the videos because you just can't watch it once.
Oh, I just mean there's a video tutorial where Neil implements a transformer. I don't think that's necessarily the best. It's kind of odd. I don't think it's necessarily the best way of understanding that. There's
also the arena articles.
Video or something.
The alternatives are doing arena articles and then looking at like the biology LMs and then maybe looking at that or transformer circuits. But the Neil video is probably the only one of the few examples where somebody actually walks through it and goes over the answer. So it might be good after you try to do it independently and then you watch the video, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual video.
Maybe get the transformer circuits Anthropic article and then maybe shows like the
It's also like not kind of terribly recorded because he didn't have a with micro and stuff, and
I keep on forgetting small details of the model, and like my visualization of the model is incomplete still.
Yeah. Okay. There's probably better stuff. Like,
did you literally go to like maths for like the training phase once? Isn't that a better boot camp?
I did went that. Yeah, I went to maths. I think part of I understood things there. In general, doing Mech Interp research and stuff, and actually doing interventions and models, things was changed, gave me a better intuition. I just say that I feel like before I actually got on Mech Interp and started actually looking at, doing code with models and actually doing projects and stuff, I was, and I feel like there's probably a lot of people like this, just looking at internet explanations of how Transformer works was giving me the impression that I actually understood it. And I didn't actually. I was very confused and didn't actually get the flow of how the information moves throughout the regressive transformer, and how things like how only the attention layer moves things, can move information from one token to the other, and how the MLP only takes the activations on each thing and does some operation on it, but doesn't move information and things like that.
And this is all before like all the things about like the different heads and the features that are across different layers and everything.
To be fair, I also was trying to understand that a few years
I'm being
ago
honest,
with,
like the explanation on
tutorials.
crosscoders. Like I looked at the Anthropic article on crosscoders and then watched the model diffing explanation of crosscoders. I'm being honest, like crosscoders feels like some word that's like feature, where it's like used in so many different ways to mean different things, meaning the same thing. No, same word meaning different things.
I don't think I currently understand exactly what crosscoders are. Apart from
No. I feel like the most accurate description is the Anthropic definition of the crosscoder from the blog. And then the video model diffing shows an example of a cross-model crosscoder, I think.
Yeah, no,
I don't understand it that well. Like that,
okay,
the resources feel like they're awful.
Okay, I honestly haven't looked that much into the crosscoder. I have a pretty good idea of how a sparse autoencoder, a normal sparse autoencoder works, but once you get the fancy variants, I kind of haven't spent that much time looking into that. Instead, this somehow works better. Let's Anthropic worry about that.
Yeah, in the circuit tracing paper, they do have fleshed out all the different variants of crosscoders. And there's also like some new paper trying to look how features evolve as the model trains, which trains on the various checkpoints using one transcoder basically. Like there's a shared feature space essentially. So they use some variant from that Anthropic's paper. This one paper isn't from Anthropic. So yeah, they are used. Some are cross layer. I think Google DeepMind uses some not cross layer one sometimes. At least when you go to Neuronpedia, they seem to have both trained to create the attribution graphs there or browse them. Yeah,
I guess this is the Neuropedia article that probably explains a lot of that stuff.
Neuropedia is the best resource for that.
I went through that for a reading group. I read it out loud. I don't think I actually it didn't. I was saying the words. I don't even remember a lot of what I said there. So,
yeah, right now Neuronpedia in big part is like that you can browse the various circuits, like from the biology of LLM paper, for example. They have some circuits there that you can just browse and play with the features and latent stuff and so on.
Yeah,
and
I think that's
construct graphs.
So far, there's no way to automate like super node clustering for attribution graphs. That's the current limitation in also evaluating the ground truth.
Well, I mean, I think there are some other problems, but I guess that's
like open source tooling. That's the current things that are not built. Automatic feature labeling has been done.
Yeah,
so you can make an attribution graph, but you can't make it like Anthropic style yet with the current tooling.
Yeah, right now, not good enough. You need, super AI perform, or how to say.
All I can say is I feel like I know the least. Yeah, I feel like I know very little. I know how to like read a paper and then think of some ideas and then like do that one like small addition, but I'm not at the level where I can like think of something new.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I myself don't. For the cross-coder stuff, I don't know that much about it. I mostly think of magic black box that somehow gets better feature reconstructions than sparse
look at the model diffing explanation.
Like, I don't understand the vanilla sparse encoders, but
look at the. Yeah, I think the best way to understand crosscoders is maybe like looking at the model diffing Neil video and look at Owen's explanation for the crosscoder.
I
And
think
then
I did
afterwards go into the,
understand it at some point, but just haven't.
no, just watch that segment and then go to the Anthropic blog post of crosscoders and transcoders. So their definition of crosscoder that used in the Neil video was between the normal model and the chat model. But in the Anthropic blog post, crosscoders were just a generic term that's like used for like basically SE.
Oh, okay. But yeah, in the end, I was thinking more like I don't understand all of the SAE variants that people are using these days. And like I'm happy with letting people or Anthropic or whatever figure out whatever the best reconstruction thing is. Anyway, going a bit back to the paper, by the way, is anything else people want to look at? We haven't read the entire thing, but I'm not sure how worth would be to completely read this now. I do remember Neil mentioned some things that he found interesting that I thought were cool on the paper, but I'm not going to compare that right now. So, do people want to just end it for today since we have been for like 2 hours almost?
I don't mind ending the paper conversation. I don't mind like explaining a little bit about the crosscoders to you before, like after the video or something.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we could like stop the recording and talk about crosscoders or whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to like bloat the video with crosscoder.
Yeah, I think the video is probably too long, so maybe I should just.
Does anybody actually watch the videos to learn?
I don't know, but I think they have some views. So, I mean, it's probably more like the ones that they have the authors or whatever. But, I mean, I will sometimes on the authors one. Sometimes I'm not super paying attention, and I later watch the video. But
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll stop the recording unless people have something they want to talk about the paper specifically. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess
I like
it's
people
still there.
actually asking things
The
or saying
recording's still there.
something, so it's not just me doing a podcast, because for that, like, there is already a better one for me.
I was not there for the previous one, so it was a podcast maybe.
No, the previous one we have the outdoors, so. I mean, it was kind of. Well, no, actually, there was a lot of interesting questions that people asked after the presentation.